This is Stephen K. Bannon, the Victory Sessions, KBC 790 AM, Talk Radio, Los Angeles, California. My guest, this segment, Matt Lewis. Matt just right off a plane. By the way, Matt Lewis was been a guest on here. He's almost a regular, but that was before he's on the Bill Maher show. Now he's got rock star status, and so it's very tough to book. Normally give him for an early segment. Now again for the last one. We had to go through his agent. How you doing, Matt?
Hey, doing great. How are you?
Great. You got two articles I want to talk about. We're trying to get Breitbart on here. Breitbart's doing some panel. He's going to join us during this thing. But in the 10 minutes we got left, you just broke this huge story about Breitbart, CPAC, Go Proud. Can you put it in perspective? We just had Jimmy LaSalva on here, the Go Proud. We had Greg Keller from CPAC. Can you put it in perspective for the audience and tell them they got to go Daily Caller and read your article? But tell us what's it about.
Well, it's huge because CPAC is the largest meeting of conservatives every year. So it's a really big deal. All the presidential candidates speak there. This year, Sarah Palin's going to be there, for example, and a lot of other really important speakers. So this conference is very important for the conservative movement. It's the biggest meeting, the one time that everyone gets together. And the last 3 years, there's really been this sort of pall hanging over it, having to do with this group, Go Proud, and whether or not they should be allowed to co-sponsor. And there's been a lot of divisiveness and a lot of fighting. And there's some people on both, some are on one side of the issue, some are on the other. But I would say the good part about this is with Andrew Breitbart speaking at CPAC this year, it seems like finally everyone is coming together. And I understand that the whole purpose of his speech will be to talk about unity and bringing the conservative movement together to beat Barack Obama. So who knows where this will end up, but at this moment at least, it seems like a very good thing for the conservative movement at least.
What has been in the air? I mean, your other articles about Newt. We've had the whole rest of the show has been about. I just got back from South Carolina. We've had Jenny Beth Martin. We've had Amy Kramer. We had all the big Tea Party leaders down in Florida. There is a galvanizing, a coming together, this wave that was started in South Carolina. And we saw Governor Palin, who has avoided CPAC for years, is now coming to be the keynote advisor. What is it? And Andrew has put kind of these issues aside because it's about unity. The Go Proud guys just had a great. It's in your story, but they put a press release out that we got to lay down our differences to focus. What has happened over the last couple of weeks that you're starting to feel it like people are coming together?
Well, and I think in terms of the broader conservative movement, I think it is just a realization that this is a fleeting moment that conservatives have to defeat Barack Obama, and not just to do it, but to do it because America's at a crossroads. So I think it's a time of maturity and where people are really putting aside, I hate to say petty concerns because in some cases these are deep philosophical differences, but they're putting them aside for a time and joining together. I think that's a little bit different than the phenomenon that we're seeing with Gingrich. At least in my estimation, what's happening in the race right now is essentially grassroots conservatives are lining up behind Newt Gingrich, and the establishment is obviously behind Mitt Romney. And I think that up until now it's been a little bit muddy, but it's becoming very clear.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, before the conservatives had nobody even to rally around it. And Newt's a very imperfect vessel, right? But you see what's changed over the last – when I was in Iowa, when I was in New Hampshire, you didn't see it. In South Carolina and now Florida, the conservatives are coming around around Gingrich. You can feel the Tea Party really getting engaged. That's what I think the CPAC thing is, not the Republican Party. There's clearly big divisions, and I think this Gingrich-Romney thing is going to play out well past Florida, all the way to Super Tuesday and maybe beyond, because I think it's that's really kind of a death struggle, right, between the grassroots and the establishment.
I mean, I think I hate to be too simplistic here, but I really believe this has to do with Newt Gingrich's ability to communicate, whether it's in a debate or giving a speech. And when I say communicate, I don't just mean he's a slick talker. I mean he can communicate a conservative vision and ideas and call people, summon people. And, I hate to compare him to Churchill or Reagan because those, we all look very bad in comparison to men of that stature, but he has a little bit of that, and nobody else does. Mitt Romney is very good at a lot of things. He is never going to summon the nation to rise the way that Gingrich could, and I think that conservatives are inspired right now by Gingrich, his eloquence, his words, and his ideas.
What is it? Your article said Newt surging. Did it all start with Bain? You actually
Yeah.
thought the trigger of this was, given all the flaws, we had Rick Tyler on at the beginning of the show, given all the flaws of the film, that did get it into the narrative and took what was Romney's core pitch about his electability, which is his expertise in creating jobs. It put that all in play.
Yeah, I think two things at play. Number one, Newt Gingrich finished in 5th place in New Hampshire. There was really no reason that anybody should have really been taking Newt Gingrich that seriously a couple weeks ago. 5th place in New Hampshire. But what happened is this Bain story all of a sudden became the hot topic. And it essentially elevated Gingrich in terms of the media's portrayal of this thing. It made it a Gingrich versus Romney race. And initially, a lot of it was negative toward Newt. But hey, at least he was in the conversation. And so going into South Carolina, it was assumed that it was Romney versus Gingrich. So I think that the first reason the Bain attacks helped him was just by virtue of sort of casting him as the anti-Romney. The other thing, though, is I do think that Mitt Romney is not used to being attacked. He got this whole race. Michelle Bachmann was attacking Rick Perry, and Rick Santorum would attack Newt, but Romney got away, and nobody has ever spent money attacking him before. Well, Ted Kennedy did, and he beat him, but in modern days, nobody has.
There's a lesson there. There's a lesson there, right?
First time somebody spent millions of dollars, and all of a sudden, Mitt Romney didn't seem so strong in debates. He seemed to be a little bit nervous. He started equivocating. And look, they pushed him into releasing his taxes. Clearly, they also pushed him into lowering his tax rate. He went from like 35% is okay to saying that 15% is good.
No, it's been, and by the way, having no real answer. I mean, it's been bizarre for a group that's supposed to do that button down. One of our favorite topics, Governor Palin. What role do you think how do you think her role has played out in trying to galvanize this Tea Party around, at least as she says, to make sure the conversation continues?
I think that her going on Hannity and the rationale she gave for Newt, at first blush, it sounded a little bit absurd. She said, vote for him to keep the conversation going and keep the vetting going. And the first time I heard that, I thought, that's kind of weak tea. Like, why doesn't she have the guts to just say support Newt because he's the best? And then I started thinking about it. That not only was it true that vetting is good and that whether Romney or Gingrich comes out of this thing, they will be better off having been through the process. But I think it was really the best argument for Gingrich. I think there were a lot of people in South Carolina who, if you force them to say Newt's the best, Newt should be president, they might get a little hesitant. But if you said to them, vote for Newt to keep this going. Vote for Newt so we can hear more. Vote for Newt so that Romney will put out his tax plan. I think it was actually brilliant, and I'm not saying it was the game changer, but I think it contributed that argument. I think actually very much, and Gingrich hopped on it. By the way, he started making that argument and parroting it. And I think it was quite smart.
No, and I tell you, the week before on Hannity, when she asked for, just very simply say, hey, if it's job creations as your pitch, let's have some details. And, oh, by the way, I release my taxes. It's incumbent upon you to have transparency and release your taxes. That's when I saw the tax thing getting to be a big issue. I think she's had a very strong role in trying to push the argument forward and keep this thing going. And now, what do you anticipate is going to happen? Are you going back down to Florida, and what do you anticipate is going to happen over these next couple of debates in the next 10 days?
It's going to be very interesting. I think that right now we're down to 4 candidates, and I think that is very good in the debates. I think it obviously favors Gingrich. He's the superior debater. The more time he has to debate, the better. I think this will make all the candidates stronger in the long run. I think it's healthy. I'm starting to look at Florida right now, and one of the things that I see, people who are smart who've been following this closely, who mentioned the early voting, that there very well may have been a lot of votes cast already for Mitt Romney.
Yes.
When he was doing quite well. And look, I think that's a problem with early voting, by the way. Some of those people
that's why I hate it. Some
of those people might like to have their vote back now, but it's too late. And what if what if something really bad had happened? Like, what if Romney had disqualified himself somehow? What if something had come to light? They can't get that vote back. So that's a problem with early voting that no one ever talks about. Everyone talks about access and convenience, but they didn't have as much time to make up their mind as other people. And I think.
What do you think the polling is going to come out Monday or Tuesday off of his bounce? He was well ahead in Florida, Newt Gingrich, and then he's been way behind. Where do you think the first set of polls are going to come out?
Well, I just saw on Twitter PPP, Public Policy Polling, who is quite reputable, said that they conducted a survey tonight of 600 Floridians, and Romney won by 2 votes, not 2%, 2 votes.
Wow.
So I think it's going to be incredibly close. And you're right. I mean, Gingrich, had a huge lead in Florida about a month ago, and he seems to do well among older people. So we'll see. My
guest has been Matt Lewis from the Daily Caller. Go and read the new article about Andrew Breitbart returning to CPAC and the new unity push at CPAC, the unity push throughout the conservative movement to take on President Obama in 2012. Matt, thank you very much. We're going to check back in with you next week down in Florida. Thank you, sir.
All right,
Stephen K.
you.
Bannon, the Victory Sessions. See you next week.